In emergencies, one must act swiftly. When someone goes into cardiac arrest, performing chest compressions keeps their brain oxygenated until help arrives to defibrillate their heart and restore its rhythm. You stop the bleeding before worrying about a broken bone. I sat on the patio, unsure of what to do first. This was uncharted territory for me, and I felt completely blindsided. As a critical care nurse, I honed my observational skills and could spot subtle signs of patient decline, often saving lives. Yet, I missed the warning signs of my nearly 18-year marriage's collapse. I had no intention of saving it. I wanted to end it painfully. After reconsidering, I realized I didn't want innocent parties hurt while I targeted my unfaithful wife and her lover. I took a sip of beer and pondered my options. The lawn stretched from the patio to the bayou with only a few trees. My house, a traditional home with modern amenities, was a gift from my father and grandfather when I got engaged. The land had been in my family for generations, and the house was built by our family's construction company. I chose nursing over joining the business despite my father's initial disappointment. This choice allowed me to afford luxuries like a boat and fishing gear, and to take my family on vacations when possible. Family was my priority, and now their happiness was at risk. Looking around, I saw my sister's identical house next door. I called her over. We needed to talk. "Isn't it early for a drink, Sam?" "It's only 2 p.m., she said, noticing my beer. "I'm off for the weekend and in the mood," I replied. She knew my work schedule allowed for frequent time off, and I preferred having a cooler of beer nearby to avoid trips to the fridge. Offering her a drink, she sat down. "So, what's so urgent, Lisa?" she asked. "You told me not to call anyone before talking to you." "I found out Hannah is cheating on me," I said, my voice shaking. "Are you sure? Maybe it's a cruel joke," she asked. I nodded. "There was a video attached." "No doubt." "Who sent it?" she asked. "I don't know," I replied. "The email said, 'You should know your wife is cheating. Here's proof.'" The sender was disgruntled 123. Lisa was furious. "That unfaithful cow. Doesn't she know you'll destroy her and her lover? Do you know who the guy is?" I nodded, ready to respond, but she cut me off. "If Mike ever cheated on me, I'd destroy him. How does Hannah even find time to have an affair? She's home almost every night except for bachelorette parties where I'm always present. She works with Mike, and they usually drive together. He would notice if she was having fun." Lisa paused, noticing my shocked expression. "No way," she exclaimed. "She's cheating with my husband? They're cheating on us with each other?" Her face turned red, and tears welled up.
I'm sorry.
"I wanted to tell you gently," I said, hugging her. "I've had a couple of hours to calm down enough not to grab a weapon." She cried briefly, then composed herself. "What do we do? Wait for them and then confront them?" she asked. "I love him, but I'm not tolerating this." "We need to be smart," I said. "Act normal tonight, just like yesterday. We'll greet them with a kiss." Lisa frowned. "Are you serious? We need a plan. We get legal advice tomorrow. At least we know we haven't contracted any STDs," I added with a smirk to lighten the mood. Lisa pointed at me.
Hell no.
"I didn't even consider that. You know me. I might joke about becoming a TV star, but I'd never actually do it." She finished her beer and tossed the can. I handed her another. "And just for the record, I'm not doing anything with Mike. I just got my period," she laughed. "This will last until we confront those cheaters. He's not getting anything from me. Hannah can have him. We mustn't let the kids know yet," I warned. "They left for Mom and Dad's place this morning. They took their time but didn't argue or ask questions. They just got in Evan's car and drove off. The kids, my son Evan, 17, Kyle, 16, Dave, 16, and my daughter Leah, 16, spent the entire summer together. They were more like siblings than cousins, especially during the pandemic when they were always together. Mike had been a good father and uncle, involved in the kids' education and activities. I handled the outdoor fun, teaching them camping, fishing, and hunting. We'd camp in the backyard, then gradually venture deeper into the swamp as the kids grew. They'd join in fishing trips, often with Mike or Lisa driving the second boat. Recently, Mike let his sons handle his boat while he stayed home. The kids learned to be self-reliant, finding their own food on trips and working together as a team. They were tough and valued family and teamwork. 3 weeks ago, I rearranged my work schedule to get 6 days off in a row. I took the girls in one boat, and the boys went in another. We traveled slowly to avoid snags and shallow water, stopping occasionally so everyone could take turns driving. We spent a week at the old fishing camp, fishing and catching crabs. We bonded as a family, or so I thought. Apparently, Hannah and Mike didn't value family unity. The thought of telling the kids about Hannah and Mike's affair was heartbreaking. Family was everything to me, and destroying that unity would be unforgivable. I expressed this to Lisa. "We can't hide it from them," she said, "but we can delay it a bit. I'll make sure they don't know anything is wrong." "What do we do next?" "I can't forgive or forget infidelity, no matter what Hannah says," I replied. Lisa agreed. "I can tolerate a lot, but not cheating. I need to figure out how to get rid of her without losing everything. I won't risk jail or let her take the kids. I can't hurt Mike either. I have to be there for the kids. I opened another beer. I get it. We need to break him financially. I'm going to take every penny I can get. Child support, alimony, everything. I agreed. Mike earned more, so Lisa had a better chance. Hannah could drive me to the pin as courts often favor women in divorce cases. In my job, I handle trusts and wills, but I know enough about the law to say our assets are protected, Lisa said. Our houses are safe. Dad gave them to us before we married, so Hannah and Mike can't claim them. Hannah might try to stay in your house until the kids are grown, but she can't claim it. Didn't you and Hannah sign a prenup? Dad insisted, I replied. It said if either party cheated, they'd only get 20% of joint assets and no alimony. Hannah's father, a wealthy plastic surgeon, had insisted on the prenup. He wasn't thrilled when I got his daughter pregnant, fearing I'd take half his fortune. My father also made Lisa and Mike sign a similar agreement. I'm worried about that video of Mike and Hannah, Lisa said. Who filmed it and how? There were at least 3 cameras, I said. The video I got showed the same event from different angles, suggesting it wasn't edited. Yet neither Mike nor Hannah seemed to know they were being recorded. Lisa insisted I show her the video on my tablet. Holy crap, she exclaimed. Mike and Hannah's comments in the video about how Lisa and I were clueless infuriated her. Mike is done, but we need to find out who made the video. I don't want it coming back to haunt us. I don't care if the world sees it as long as it doesn't affect us, I agreed, suggesting we hold off on a public reaction. Lisa sat silently, pondering our next steps, then began to sob. I hugged her, and we both cried, unable to hide our pain anymore. That night, I met Hannah at the door, hugging and kissing her. I half expected her to pull away, but she kissed me back. I couldn't detect any trace of aftershave, just her perfume. Despite my anger, I told her dinner was ready. Lisa and I had already planned takeout, neither of us wanting to cook. We joked about poisoning our spouses, but it was a way to vent, not a real option. The next morning, I watched Hannah get into Mike's car. I called Lisa. How'd it go? No problem, she replied. Joking and planning helped me keep my cool. Any idea where they're going tonight? Lisa, always a bit of a loose cannon, needed to vent. We had to be honest about our feelings. At 10 a.m., we were in the office of one of Lisa's bosses, Jake, a divorce attorney and an old friend. He agreed to represent us. Are you sure you have a video showing both parties? He asked. We assured him we did, but chose not to show it yet. As long as you have evidence of infidelity, you're good. Your prenuptial agreements are strict. Sam, did you consult a lawyer before signing? I explained that my father insisted on a legal opinion, and Lisa used the same document. Jake continued, the cheater only gets 20% of joint assets, including savings and investments. There are no provisions for personal income accounts. Do either of you have any hidden income? We shook our heads. What if Hannah has money she didn't tell me about? I asked. Common property, Jake replied. Like if you bought something without telling her. Home improvements can be tricky. Your homes are protected because they were gifted before marriage, but things like solar panels might be considered common property. So she only gets 20% because she's a cheater, right? I asked. I'm willing to give her that. We can negotiate the division of furniture and other items. She'll have to pay for transportation and storage if she wants to take anything, Jake grinned. These are the games we'll play. The important thing is your ironclad prenups. As long as you prove infidelity, keep the video copies hidden and confidential. If they sue over the video being public, it depends on how it was obtained. Be careful. He emphasized the need for discretion. Lisa and I nodded. We had considered editing the video and sharing it with our friends and family, but we were worried about the impact on our children. Now, we were more determined to find out who filmed it. We decided to serve the divorce papers on Thursday at noon, but I suggested waiting until Friday afternoon, so they would have to worry all weekend without legal advice. Jay convinced us to stick with Thursday, saying it would save costs and still keep them busy with financial statements all weekend, likely increasing their legal fees. Initially, we wanted to serve them in person to watch their reactions, but Jake advised against it. Instead, we decided to serve them at work in front of their colleagues. After leaving Jake's office, we went to the bank to transfer money into new accounts in our names only, ensuring we had statements for all accounts. We paid off and canceled credit cards, opening new ones in our names only. I checked my email and found 3 more videos of Hannah and Mike. I thanked the sender and asked how they got the videos, expressing concern about them going public. I secretly wished they would be released but knew we had to be cautious to avoid a lawsuit. An hour later, I received an email with an address, 9203 Victoria Street, apartment 2011. I visited the address and convinced the woman at the counter to give me information by implying the tenant was involved in criminal activities. She gave me the details. The apartment was rented by the insurance company where Mike and Hannah worked, with Mike's signature on the contract. I wondered how the company would react if they found out they were paying for Mike's affair. Hannah called me at 12:30, furious about the divorce papers. I calmly told her I knew she had found someone else and was setting her free. We had rehearsed our responses. Hannah angrily denied the affair, accusing me of believing rumors and threatening to take everything in the divorce, including custody of the kids, child support, and half of our assets. She suggested Mike could move in with her and I could live with Lisa, imagining what they were doing in my house. Go ahead, I said. Get yourself a lawyer. I barely kept my voice steady, struggling with the regret of my marriage falling apart and anger at her stubborn denial. I hoped Lisa hadn't revealed too much to Mike. By the way, the girls are packing your things. Lisa told the boys to pack Mike's. Everything will be in front of the house for you to pick up this afternoon. We got a restraining order and changed the locks this morning. You'll have to find another place to stay until the court decides. Hannah started yelling, so I hung up. 10 minutes later, Lisa texted, "Backyard. Bring your cooler. Make sure it's full." "That fool Mike," she began, sipping her beer. "He tried to blame it on some secretary's gossip. I told him Hannah did the same. He denied everything, said we shouldn't believe it. I told him to get his stuff." "Really?" "Yes. I told him to call first because I had a loaded weapon. Jake will be here soon with 2 sheriff's deputies to keep things from getting out of hand. I realized having deputies present was smart. Mike might provoke me, and I could end up in jail for assault. I was already in a controlled panic mode, like during emergencies." Lisa continued, "I'm glad you talked to the kids earlier. I couldn't have done it without breaking down." We gathered the kids, and I told them what was happening. Surprisingly, they seemed to expect it and started packing Hannah and Mike's stuff. Lisa said the kids took it surprisingly well. Maybe they were in shock or didn't realize how it would affect them. My phone beeped with an email. "I wonder if it's from Disgruntled 123, I said. "Check it," Lisa insisted. She showed me how to open it, and we listened to an audio file. "Can you believe Sam and Lisa served us?" Hannah said. "They must have found out somehow. I can't believe this. Just last night, Sam was so affectionate." "Relax," Mike replied. "They don't know anything. Someone must have gossiped about us having lunch or driving together. We need to deny everything. If they go through with this divorce, we'll make them pay. I know a lawyer who will help us. Just don't admit anything. Act like everything you say is being recorded." After listening, Lisa and I were silent. "Okay, let them think we don't know anything," I said. "Mike mentioned they've been planning something for a long time. We need to ensure we're protected if they do something illegal." Lisa nodded, tears in her eyes. "We have to hold firm." "I know," Lisa said quietly. "Jake said I'm in a better position. Courts favor women, but I can't accept Hannah getting custody of Evan and Leah and living in your house until Leah turns 18. Even with the prenup, it's terrible if she lives rent-free while you pay child support." I felt the same but hugged Lisa as she cried. I assured her we would come out victorious, though I wasn't sure. Divorce is about minimizing losses. The children were silent as Lisa and I entered the house. Leah and Cindy were packing Hannah's clothes into suitcases and bags. Now, using plastic garbage bags, I asked them to take pictures of the luggage, planning to apply its value to Hannah's share of the assets. Next door, the boys were almost done. Mike had fewer clothes, and the boys were stuffing them into bags rather than folding them. I smiled as Kyle stuffed a $2,000 suit into a bag. They had my back. Hannah texted me, and I called Jake, who showed up with 2 sheriff's deputies. Jake told me to relax and enjoy. Hannah and Mike arrived with another familiar face, Brandon Landry, a bully from elementary school.
Hey, Sam Brandosmarkt.
"I hear you're having trouble with your wife and brother-in-law." "No big deal. If I had a weapon, I would have shot him." Brandon was huge, and fighting him wasn't an option. "Hey Brandon," I said. "We're just trying to work it out. You don't seriously think my boy Mike is with your wife, do you?" Brandon asked, grinning. "That's the story," I said. Jake moved closer. "I can't deal with it. Hannah accused me of taking all the money from our bank account." "Yes, and I have statements showing the original amounts. You'll get what you're owed." She didn't know her credit card would no longer work. Lisa and I didn't accompany Mike and Hannah into the house. Leah and Cindy followed Hannah and a deputy, ensuring nothing funny happened. Evan and Kyle followed Mike. "Where's my jewelry?" Hannah asked. This was a major point of contention. Over the years, I bought her high-quality jewelry worth at least $25,000. Most of it was locked in my safe. I took pictures of Hannah's ring and necklace for insurance purposes. I wanted proof of ownership. Brandon started to argue but stopped when I explained I took pictures to prevent the jewelry from going missing. Jake stepped in, suggesting a new appraisal of all assets. After consulting with Brandon, Hannah calmly removed her jewelry and handed it to me. "Where am I supposed to go?" Hannah asked. I nearly suggested her love nest on Victoria Street, but held back. I shrugged, realizing my emotions had shifted. Days ago, I loved this woman. Now, I felt nothing but anger and coldness toward her. Hannah and Mike finally left, with Brandon following. I wondered if they were heading to the apartment. Jake smiled. "I hope so. We have someone following them." If we reveal the apartment now, it will help our negotiations. Instead, they went to the Holiday Inn near their office. Cheerfully, I helped them move their things inside. I needed more flash drives for backups of the audio and video files. Lisa and the girls were making dinner when my phone beeped with another email. Lisa followed me to the computer. Okay, guys, Brandon's voice said. Someone's probably following Sam. Stay at a motel and get a room with 2 beds. Make sure both beds look used. The investigator can bribe the maid to check. We'll say you're sharing a room to save money. It was embarrassing when my card was declined, Mike said. Good thing I took extra cash. What's next? I'll call the credit card company to open a new account. Sam's thought about jewelry, Brandon continued. He likely has a list. Protect any hidden assets. Legally, they're community property, but what Sam and Lisa don't know about, they can't claim. Don't hide too much. You might get caught. If you have a secret bank account, make sure it holds only a small amount. Offshore accounts are better. You don't want to be caught lying under oath. Now what? Hannah asked. They can find our Baton Rouge accounts. Screw that, Mike exclaimed. We can fly to the Cayman Islands and open an account there. Make the room look used. Wet the tissues, ruffle the towels, wet the shower, and use some shampoo. I'll call the office and say we're off tomorrow. The audio file ended. Do they have secret bank accounts? Lisa sighed. Where did the money come from? I see the bank statements. He couldn't have hidden much. I felt bad too. Hannah and I got $50 weekly for travel cash, and we both reviewed the credit card statements monthly. I told the apartment woman Mike was into pills and Corey San as a bluff, but now I wondered, could he be hiding something more? We decided to leave it for tonight, joining the kids for dinner. There wasn't much we could do about hidden bank accounts anyway. The next morning, I drove to Jake's office, having arranged a jewelry appraisal and an estimate for my firearms from a local dealer. Lisa went to work briefly, and we met at Jake's office, where I played the audio files from the previous day. I'd like to know who's sending these, Jake said. How they bugged Hannah and Mike in the hotel is beyond me. A private investigator couldn't have done it that fast. We might need a judge's order to find their bank account balances, which could mean hiring an investigator. Lisa and I shook our heads when asked if we had noticed missing money. If you want this divorce quickly, like you said, we'll move fast. Next week, we'll meet with Hannah, Mike, and their lawyer to list assets, then go before a judge. Louisiana's Napoleonic laws make divorce easier, especially with proven infidelity. Counseling won't help. Once the judge rules, you'll wait 6 months, and it's over, Jake added. Brandon called, demanding I release an extra 30% of the money I withdrew. I reminded him the prenup states the cheater only gets 20% of assets. He demanded proof of infidelity, which we'll present in court. It was amusing to see him flounder. I'd love to get an audio tape of him advising hiding money offshore into the courtroom. I had to work that weekend. The head nurse, Sharon, couldn't cover my shifts. What if I start coughing and need a COVID test? I asked. Idiot, Sharon said affectionately. Yes, I could fill in. You have vacation and sick days saved up. Take an emergency vacation if needed. I can't believe Hannah did this to you. How about I work this weekend and start my vacation on Monday? I suggested. Really? Thank you. I owe you one, Sharon said. I'll start your sick leave and then vacation. Take as much as you need and keep me posted. Working was a welcome relief. Weekends were busy, but ICU staff had to stay alert. I was surprised to see my father-in-law, Dr. Pratt, waiting for me at the nurse's station. Hello, Dr. Pratt. What brings you to the ICU? I greeted him, knowing the staff would be curious. Cut the crap and let's talk, he hissed in the head nurse's office. What's this about you kicking Hannah out? She called her mother sobbing, John asked. I found out Hannah is having an affair, I said bluntly. She's cheating on me with my sister's husband. I'm dealing with a family crisis. It was a rumor started by gossipers at the office, said John. They commute together and often have lunch together. She told us the rumors about an affair with her boss were just that, rumors. I decided to be open with him despite our history. I haven't told anyone except my lawyer and my sister. I haven't even told Hannah and Mike everything I know, let alone the kids, I said, holding back my emotions. I have proof, video and audio files. This isn't just a rumor. Dr. Pratt looked shocked. What are you going to do? He asked softly, already knowing the answer. What can I do? I replied. I'm trying to protect the kids, but I can't just ignore this. John, what would you do if Hannah had proof I was cheating? I'd want your head on a platter. I'd help her bury you, he said honestly, with tears in his eyes. What about Evan and Leah? How are they handling it? He asked. They're talking more with their cousins and each other than with Lisa or me. They seem to be holding up, but they're angry with Hannah. I told them they need to talk to her, but I don't know if they have. I'm not getting involved in this. I thought you were overreacting to gossip, John said softly. My first priority is to protect Evan and Leah. I nodded. And I'll help Hannah with her physical needs. I don't excuse her behavior, but if you have irrefutable proof, I accept it. Stay in touch. You're an honorable man. He walked out, shoulders slumped. I felt more sorry for him than for Hannah. Wow, Lisa said when I got home. So he knows his daughter isn't so virtuous. We need to tell Mom and Dad soon. How about tomorrow night after your shift? We don't want them to be mad at us for keeping them in the dark. I agreed. The meeting wasn't pleasant. My father only asked if I had proof, and I assured him I did. Like John, he was more concerned about the kids than us, which I understood. In our culture, children came first, and adults dealt with the consequences of their actions. Children were protected, but informed to learn. I received no additional information from my mysterious benefactor, which was fine. I had 4 explicit videotapes showing Hannah and Mike, along with audio recordings proving their long-term affair. I didn't need more proof. Hannah not only cheated, but also financially defrauded the family. The mystery of how she saved enough to fly to the Cayman Islands infuriated me. She was a thief and a fraud. Jake began investigating their accounts using social security numbers, ensuring we could subpoena statements if the money was missing. Some questions were answered the following Wednesday when we met to list our total assets. A court-appointed financial arbitrator reviewed the paperwork. I provided my annual salary and Hannah's pay stub. Hannah made $5,000 a month, and my salary varied with overtime, but we earned similar amounts annually. Jake said this would allow for minimal alimony even without the prenup and infidelity proof. On Monday, the auditor requested income tax returns for the past few years. I found them in our desk while Lisa had to get copies from her accountant. She was upset that Mike hadn't filed them with other documents. She knew Mike earned about $80,000 compared to her $50,000 and was pleased when Jake said she'd likely get a sizable maintenance payment. Brandon entered the conference room with a sullen Mike and Hannah. Hannah glared at me, her anger surprising me. I expected an apology, but she remained silent, likely on Brandon's advice. Mike struggled to maintain a neutral expression. The court officer introduced himself and his assistant, who took notes and kept an electronic record. Let's get started. Your attorneys have forms for you to sign, confirming that your statements today are true and may be admitted into evidence. Our goal is to compile a list of all assets and income for the judge to review. We won't discuss prenuptial agreements today. Regarding car valuation, we'll use the standard Blue Book. If the car your child drives is registered in your name, we can consider it separate from community property if both parties agree. We'll get to the money later. Let's start with Mr. and Mrs. Jones. Listing automobiles, firearms, the boat, and household goods took only a few minutes. Even Hannah's jewelry wasn't a problem. I had it appraised, and its value exceeded that of my truck and firearms combined. Brandon insisted the solar system be considered separately and prepared a document stating its value and depreciation. Jake reviewed it, made a few notes, and nodded. The 401k accounts were listed. I asked why, thinking they should be excluded. No, they count since you've been married over 10 years, but in your case, the values are similar, so it's not a big issue, replied Jake. We then reviewed the checking and savings accounts. Jake entered the statement showing I had taken 80% of the funds, and did the same for Lisa and Mike. It's straightforward, said the auditor. Mr. Jacobs, there's a big discrepancy between Mrs. Jones's salary estimate and her tax returns for the last 2 years. Rich tensed up. I've estimated each of you earned $60,000, I explained. I multiplied her monthly salary by 12. Yes, but for the last 2 years, Mrs. Jones reported an income of $140,000 annually. My incredulous, what the hell made the assistant frown. Didn't you look at your tax return? He asked. I shook my head and explained that Hannah and Mike had a new accountant handle our taxes electronically. I just looked at the small refund we got. Hannah turned purple. Her salary includes $80,000 in bonuses each year, Mr. Jacobs said. I looked at Brandon. And Mr. Jenkins got $110,000 in bonuses each year, Jacobs continued. Lisa asked how much extra that was net. About $80,000 a year, totaling about $160,000. So where's the money, Hannah? I demanded. Is that why you went to the Cayman Islands last Friday? To hide it? Hannah angrily asked. How did you find out? Are you following me? She then composed herself. No, I didn't need to, I said. You did it yourself. Both you and Lisa insisted the kids install phone locator apps. Evan and Leah used it to track you when you didn't answer them on Friday. They saw you reappear near the coast, suggesting you were in the Cayman. Hannah and Mike looked astonished. They checked your office on Monday and saw you weren't home but in Baton Rouge, likely transferring money into new accounts, I added. Jake spoke up. Brandon, we can get statements to prove those account balances. It's illegal to hide money offshore to avoid distributing joint assets. Your clients flew to the Cayman right after hiring you. Hiding assets like this is a felony. Hannah began to cry, and even Mike looked scared. Brandon's face turned pale and then red. I didn't do anything like that, he declared, looking at the recorder and Jacobs' assistant typing away. Lisa asked Jake, can we get them to return the money? Jake nodded. Yes, we'd get our share in the end, even if we have to confiscate their paychecks. 80% of those accounts will become yours once infidelity is proven in court. But there's no money left, exclaimed Hannah. It disappeared when we tried to transfer it. Mike tried to silence her, but she continued. I think you stole it, she accused me. I looked at her incredulously. I didn't know for sure about the money until recently. I suspected it, but I had no idea of the amounts. What are you claiming now? Did you spend it all or lose it? Both are nonsense. She explained that they tried to transfer the money electronically at the bank in Grand Cayman, but the transfer was denied. They then went to Baton Rouge to investigate. The online statement showed the transfer but no routing number or account details. Provide me with the bank information for the Baton Rouge account, and I will investigate, said Mr. Jacobs. I can get the results faster and enter them into the court documents. Mike and Hannah left the room, looking dejected. Lisa wondered where the money went, and I shrugged. Sharing her thoughts, our case was expedited, likely because Hannah and Mike had begged Brandon to speed things up. They stayed at the Holiday Inn for a week before moving to the apartment on Victoria Street. It amused me to think about them in their love nest, likely struggling with cash flow and Brandon's fees. All 5 children insisted on attending the hearing, and I agreed since they were affected by the divorce. Jake explained what to expect. Judge Goody conducted his hearing semi-formally, sitting at the table with us. Jake, Lisa, and I sat to Brandon's left, with Mike and Hannah across from us. The kids sat in the gallery. Following Jake's lead, we stood as the judge entered. He waved for us to sit. I handle family cases in a semi-formal setting, he explained. Sit and speak when I address you. Raise your hand if you want to speak. Be on your best behavior and respectful. If you piss me off, I'll throw you out. Understood? The kids managed to hold back their laughter at his last statement. Well, I've reviewed both cases. Normally, we treat these as separate matters, but the evidence and parties involved are the same here. A sibling is accused of infidelity. In Louisiana, while infidelity alone isn't grounds for divorce, there are prenuptial agreements that affect property distribution in such cases. Therefore, I'll need irrefutable evidence of infidelity first. There were discrepancies regarding monetary assets with allegations of hiding funds. My investigation shows Mrs. Jones and Mr. Jenkins have bank accounts in Baton Rouge with balances of $120,000 and $160,000, respectively. The entire balance was transferred from these accounts the Monday before the divorce petition was filed. The correct passwords and security questions were used, indicating the transfers were made by Mrs. Jones and Mr. Jenkins, or someone they authorized. Further investigation revealed the money was split evenly among 5 accounts belonging to their children: Evan, Leah, Kyle, Dave, and Cindy Jenkins. These transfers are legal under the Uniform Gifts to Minors Act. The accounts were set up years ago, likely for college or income in the event of a parent's passing. I was stunned. Why was Hannah making such a fuss if she had given the money to her children? The judge continued. The parents showed responsibility, if not remorse, by giving the money to their children. Such deposits are non-refundable unless fraud is proven. Does anyone have proof of fraud? I was thrilled. While I would have liked my 80%, knowing the money was divided among the children was satisfying. Mike and Hannah looked shocked, suspecting we had outsmarted them. When Judge Goody asked if we had proof of fraud, we all shook our heads and said, "No, Your Honor." They seemed terrified of possible charges for hiding money overseas. None of them appeared willing to rebut the judge's remarks. The next matter is the establishment of custody of the minor children, the judge said. My daughter Leah raised her hand. Yes, Your Honor. I read that children 15 and older can choose which parent to live with, she said. In some states, yes. In Louisiana, I consider the children's opinions after speaking to them privately, Judge Goody replied. Leah stood and stated, I don't need to talk privately. My mother cheated on my father and our entire family. I want to live with my dad. Evan stood up and agreed. Kyle, Dave, and Cindy also stood, stating they wanted to live with their mother for the same reason. My heart raced under the table as I squeezed Lisa's hand. I will consider your wishes, Judge Goody said with a half smile. But it hasn't yet been established that there was, as you put it, treason. Leah raised her hand again, and the judge turned to her. I also read that a 16-year-old can petition the court for emancipation, and 17-year-olds can leave home without a petition. Yes, the judge replied. The 17-year-old rule is an old law for young men wanting to enlist in the military without parental consent. For a 16-year-old to petition for emancipation, they must be able to support themselves. Is that clear? Leah nodded. I have a college fund with another $56,000 added to it, plus what my parents and grandparents contributed. Cindy stood up. Me too. Collectively, we have plenty of money to live on our own for a long time. Her brother Dave stood and smiled. Me too. We could rent a nice place together. Evan and Kyle stood up and said that if they pooled their money, all 5 could live fine on their own. I glanced at the judge, who seemed to suppress a laugh. Let me guess. If I don't go along with your wishes, you'll all petition for emancipation or leave on your own. The 5 heads nodded. Sit down, he commanded. I'll consider what you said. There's an allegation of infidelity in this case, which affects the prenuptial agreement and property distribution. So I'm going to ask for evidence of infidelity. Jake stood up. Your Honor, I have these pictures of Richard Jenkins and Hannah Jones together. Brandon objected. Anyone can alter photos. I have a picture of me shaking hands with the president and another of us playing golf, made by my son as a joke. Defense counsel hasn't identified the source of this evidence. Judge Goody looked at Jake, then at Lisa and me. Jake nodded for me to respond. Your Honor, the evidence came from an anonymous source. I received several video and audio files and took these screenshots from one of the videos. I have the full video on a DVD and thumb drive. I looked at Mike and Hannah, who appeared shocked and agitated, shaking their heads in disbelief. Judge Goody observed their reactions, noting their purple faces in clear distress. Okay, do I need to reproduce the file Mr. Jones provided? Or do all parties agree that infidelity occurred? Judge Goody asked. Brandon wanted to see the footage, but when Hannah and Mike quickly pleaded with the judge not to show the video, he backtracked. Could you spare a minute for my clients, Your Honor? After consulting with them, he reluctantly said, we agree with the plaintiff's claims. Well, in that case, I will announce my verdict, said Judge Goody. Since all parties agree infidelity occurred, the marriage contracts will be honored. In each case, Lisa and Sam were awarded 80% of the community property. Judge Goody suggested we discuss the actual distribution with our attorneys to avoid court involvement in the details. For custodial parents, I grant Sam Jones full custody of Evan and Leah Jones, and Lisa Jenkins custody of Cindy, Kyle, and Dave Jenkins, as requested. The non-custodial parents have full visitation rights. Legally, the divorce will be finalized in 6 months. The increased incomes require Hannah to pay Sam $1,000 a month and Mike to pay Lisa $2,000 a month for the next 3 years. Each dependent child will receive $500 a month until they turn 18. Jake said the payments were minimal and suggested we could appeal, but I decided against it, and Lisa followed my lead. After the judge ended the hearing, we left. Jake said he would arrange a meeting to work out property distribution details. I told the kids to go home, change, and wait for me for a family meeting. Lisa and I walked to the back of the courtroom, where my father was waiting. So, when did you figure it out, Dad? I asked. Lisa looked puzzled. It hit me when Leah and Cindy made those comments about the video, I said to Lisa. Disgruntled 123 is a personality the kids invented. Lisa's mouth dropped open. No, Dad said. I figured it out a few days ago when I saw an old credit card bill. Evan and Kyle asked me 2 months ago for a credit card to plan something special for your anniversary. They promised to reimburse me about $500. The statement showed a purchase from an electronics company. Initially, I didn't pay attention, but when I called the company, they revealed the kids bought cell phone bugs. The kids spent $500 on spy devices? I asked. Yes. Apparently, they were expensive. Dad didn't know where they got the video cameras. He followed me home to find out more. All 5 children were waiting in the living room. They fell silent as we walked in. Go to the kitchen and sit down, I said. Lisa grabbed 3 beers, handing one to Dad and me. Evan and Kyle held out their hands, grinning. You may be old enough to be spies, but not old enough to drink, I said. They shrugged, knowing I wasn't angry. Okay, who wants to start? Let me begin at the beginning, Leah began. It all started when Cindy and I stopped by my mom's office, and she wasn't there. Neither was Uncle Mike. This was around the time they began phase 2 of the COVID lockdown. We thought we could get some money from one of them to see a movie. The receptionist said they were out and had left long ago. It was well past lunchtime, so we decided to track them. You know we have a locator feature my mom insisted on installing on our phones. It showed they were at a strange address, so we checked it out. It was an apartment building. When we arrived, we saw Uncle Mike's car and waited. They came out later, walking hand in hand and smiling. That got us thinking. So we started tracking where they went over the next few days. For 3 days straight, they returned to the same place and stayed for about an hour and a half each time. Sometimes they went there late at night after work, but before going home, we told the boys about it. Rob continued. We searched the internet and found bugs you can insert into cell phones after downloading an app. It works like a continuous phone call in the background and doesn't interfere with regular calls. It does drain the battery a bit faster. It transmits all the sounds around the phone so you can eavesdrop. We talked Pop into letting us use his credit card to buy them. Sorry we lied a bit. Pop installing the bugs and the app on their phones was easy. We took turns checking them and eavesdropping on conversations. We recorded anything interesting to share later. So that's clear with the audio recordings. But how did you get the video and find out which apartment they used? I asked. We looked at their keys. They both had a key marked 2011. That's not their office number. So Jason copied his mom's key. We went into the apartment a couple of times and looked around. We decided we needed cameras, Leah explained. So we bought a few and a small transmitter, added Dave. That was pretty cool. The boy was excited about the technology. He didn't notice he was describing the end of several marriages and the breakup of two families. At least Lisa and I got some answers. The cameras were motion sensitive, so they didn't burn too many batteries. We hid the receiver under the couch. The receiver got information from the cameras and transmitted it to our receiver. We recorded it. It seemed simple. So you took a video of Hannah and Mike doing it. You also recorded audio files and sent some to me? I spoke carefully. These were my kids, my nephews and nieces. I couldn't ruin my relationship with them. But there was another issue: money. Dad, when Cindy and I first looked at that apartment, I realized our mom was gone, Leah stated. Well, not gone, but not back to where our family used to be. They had clothes stashed away, and Mom had some outfits I recognized. She had a makeup kit, towels, and washcloths too. We knew what they were doing. They'd work out, clean up, and then come home to you and Aunt Lisa like nothing had happened. We were all furious. They weren't just cheating on you and Aunt Lisa. They were cheating on us. Now, about the money. The secret bank accounts were a side issue, Cindy said. When we looked around the apartment, we found some bank account papers. There were instructions on how to access it online. It took a while to find the actual accounts. We even spent time in Dad and Aunt Hannah's offices, peeking in on them a couple of times. The receptionist let us in to wait for them, she giggled. We looked through a bunch of folders and finally found one in the bottom drawer of Dad's desk with some applications. Then we looked in Aunt Hannah's office and found more papers. Aunt Hannah had a small notebook in her purse with passwords and stuff in it. It didn't say secret bank account, but we could tell the password was unusual, much more so than the one she uses for her cell phone. And it worked. It took a while, but eventually, we realized it was the right password. They were using the same password for both accounts. Jason took control of the situation. We already knew they were up to something shady. When we discovered their hidden bank accounts, we got really angry. We wondered if they were dealing pills or embezzling money. Dave was the one who came up with the idea of putting money in our accounts. Dave blushed. Actually, I said we can't let Dad and Aunt Hannah get rich and leave us hanging. We read about dividing assets in a divorce, and we didn't like the idea of them keeping half the money either. We had accounts set up by Pawpaw, and I thought maybe we should take all the money. I thought the cops might catch us, but since we were minors and it was our parents' money, we wouldn't get in serious trouble. We thought it might work, so we did it. If we'd known about the 80-20 share, we probably wouldn't have taken it, Leah said regretfully. It actually worked out better that way. And then you guys started sending me video and audio files, I said. Looking around the table, I was at least a little relieved to see an expression of restraint rather than outright pride. That was the hardest part, Jason said quietly. We were really mad at Mom and Uncle Mike for what they were doing to all of us. We didn't want to hurt you and Aunt Lisa, but we couldn't do anything. So we sent you that first video. We kept trying to get you to visit Mom and Dad. We knew you were upset. If you pulled a weapon out of the safe, we would have told you everything. We knew you'd tell Aunt Lisa. We kind of moved on. We already moved the money that Mom hid. I think we stole it. Well, I know we stole it. But we figured they cheated us, so it was only fair. I hope you and Aunt Lisa weren't too upset. I looked at Lisa, who had a look of amazement on her face from the start. I hope you kids never get mad at me and Aunt Lisa, I said with a smile. But if you ever nail me like you did your mother and Mike, I'll punch you the loss of life, even if it's with my walker in a nursing home. They all chuckled at my threat. You'll never have to worry about that, Dad, said Leah. You'll never let the family down. We stick together. One thing I don't understand, my dad said. You bought cell phone bugs with my credit card. They were awfully expensive. Where did you get the money for the video cameras? From them. Yeah, they cost about $500 for each camera because they shot full video with sound and had built-in motion and sound detectors. We got 5 of them, replied Jason, plus another $500 each for a hidden transmitter that sent a signal to a receiver we hooked up to Leah's computer. That's a total of $3,500 plus shipping, but we can get half of that money back if we return it undamaged. We already pulled all the cameras and the transmitter. We probably lost the cell phone bugs, though. As for the credit card, we used Dad's Visa card. I didn't have a Visa card, I said. So we do now. I applied for it and forged your signature, said Jason. At least he was honest enough not to look guilty. It has a $10,000 limit. We bring in the mail every day, so hiding it was easy, added Leah. Cindy and I set up an email account, Disgruntled 123. Rob came up with the name. He said what Mom and Uncle Mike did made him mad. The kid smiled and nodded, seeing that Lisa, Dad, and I were really impressed. So the bugs in the cell phones are still active? I asked. Dave nodded. Yes, they work as long as the cell phone batteries are charged. Thanks to that and the phone location app, we know where they are and what they are doing at all times, said Dave. He was thrilled when he realized they weren't in trouble. If one of them is talking on their cell phone, we can hear it. It's voice activated, so it's a lot of car sounds and business talk. We took turns going through the files to pick out anything important. I demanded access to the audio recording. As a result, Lisa and I had advanced knowledge of Hannah and Mike's demands at the property division meeting. Hannah was so eager to get her jewelry that she gave me most of the cash and all of the housewares, We granted some of their requests without much argument, but we made them grovel during the process. Lisa shocked everyone except me when she suggested they walk across town with signs on their heads saying, "We cheated on our spouses." The alternative was to appeal the amount of alimony and child support. I thought Brandon's eyes would pop out of his head at that threat. We heard Brandon tell them they got off easy on the child support payments and warned them that Lisa and I would likely appeal the amounts. Lisa eventually recanted, forcing them both to apologize on their knees. I don't know exactly how it happened, and I'm willing to swear on a stack of Bibles that I had nothing to do with it. Somehow, 2 months after our hearing, the insurance company that Hannah and Mike worked for found out that he had rented an apartment for a love nest with company funds. Although everyone in the office had gotten premiums for the past 2 years, for some reason, Hannah had them much higher than usual each year. Mike managed to get big bonuses too. No one ever figured out why. When all this got out, he and Hannah were fired. No big deal. The company didn't want any publicity. None of the videos ever made it to the internet. Lisa and I couldn't have cared less, and we joked over beers that it would have been fun to make them stars. But the kids didn't want to publicly embarrass themselves. We understood their point of view. Hannah and Mike now live in New Orleans, working for a small shipping company. Since leaving town, they hardly ever visit the kids, and they rarely even call. Last I heard, they are having a very difficult time paying child support and alimony. I wish them well, maybe not. Despite the turmoil and betrayal, life slowly began to regain a sense of normalcy. The children, resilient as ever, adjusted to the new family dynamics. Lisa and I found solace in our strengthened bond, supporting each other through the difficult transition. Our homes, now free from the specter of deceit, became places of healing and growth. We decided to take a family trip, something to remind us of the importance of unity and love. The kids were excited, and the laughter and joy that had been missing for so long began to return. We went camping, fishing, and shared stories around the campfire, creating new memories to overshadow the painful ones. Professionally, I threw myself into my work, finding comfort in the familiar routines of the ICU. Lisa, too, found strength in her career, focusing on providing a stable environment for her children. We both knew that rebuilding trust and stability would take time, but we were committed to the journey. Our parents were a constant source of support, always ready with advice or a comforting word. They reminded us that family is not just about being together, but about being there for each other in times of need. Their wisdom and love were invaluable as we navigated the complexities of our new reality. Jake, our steadfast attorney, continued to assist us with the final legal proceedings. His guidance ensured that we protected our assets and secured a stable future for our children. The divorce, though painful, was a necessary step toward healing and rebuilding our lives. In time, the anger and hurt began to fade, replaced by a sense of determination and hope. We had faced betrayal and heartbreak, but emerged stronger and more united. Our family, though changed, remained a source of love and support. As the 6-month waiting period for the finalization of the divorce came to an end, we looked forward to a fresh start. The journey had been difficult, but it taught us the importance of resilience, honesty, and the unbreakable bond of family. Life, with all its challenges and uncertainties, continued. And as we moved forward, we did so with the knowledge that we could overcome anything as long as we stood together. The end of one chapter marked the beginning of another, filled with hope, love, and the promise of a brighter future.